Hi, this is Carrie Cassidy. I'm here with Michael Tellinger, and he has been very instrumental in bringing Makomati and the African ruins in South Africa to the public attention. He's been working with Johann Heiner in doing so, and we are here to talk about that and his book, Slave Species of God, which has gotten worldwide recognition, as well as to get an update on where things are going now. And we also are here to clear up a controversy that surrounds Michael Tellinger and Credo Mutwa at this time, simply because that's an extremely unfortunate situation and there is absolutely no reason for it to continue. All of that is going to be contained in this interview, and I encourage you to listen. Thank you. This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot.
I don't know if you're aware of the TV shows that are out there now, but they are pretty adventurous if you follow certain ones, like Dollhouse and Fringe and Stargate Universe. They're covering some pretty sophisticated stuff, actually.
They are, and it really raises a puzzling question: is what's going on if they're allowing those kind of shows to slip through or to air? Is there another different kind of devious plot or a double whammy plot behind it all? Interesting. I'm not quite sure what to make.
I know. Well, I actually think that one thing is that they think they've won. And they think they've got the New World Order all sewn up and it's a fait accompli. And so, in a sense, they don't care anymore what we do. And that's one thing I get. And the other thing I'm getting, and this is not only from my own sort of psychic intuitive information, but from, whistleblowers, obviously. The other thing is that, as you know, the precept of the Illuminati concepts in reality is that they need to do what's called foreshadowing, and you probably understand that because you actually have done the entertainment industry, right? You have a background, don't you, in shooting things?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So they foreshadow events and things that they're actually involved in. That's why I find watching television, when it's a decent show like Fringe, where they're showing you, they're actually sending people through a portal onto the other dimension, into an Earth reality that is a parallel Earth. And so there you have it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and in some way, I suppose it's hide it in plain sight.
Exactly. So it's all very fascinating. But of course, we're in this age of when truth is being revealed, and you're all part of that. You have a really sort of twisted, in a good way, twisted background in terms of that it wasn't a logical step for you to be where you are today, it doesn't seem to me.
It wasn't really a logical step, but in many ways, when I look back at everything I've done, everything was a dress rehearsal and a training ground to allow me to do what I'm doing now. And that's so obvious. It is so absolutely painfully obvious to me now.
Well,
and,
can you, for the purposes of this, because we are recording now, and if we could give yourself a little, pretend that these people don't really know who you are, although that's getting more and more speculative, because most people at this point, I think, do know your name. But at any rate, give your background just briefly, and then let's talk about what all you're involved with.
I feel quite embarrassed to talk about all the different things I've been involved with, because I suppose embarrassed is the wrong word, but all my life I've been called a jack of all trades kind of thing. And because we live in a society that if you don't settle down, get married, have a family, have a steady job, have a good career so you can provide for your family, and this whole thing about family values and all. So I've been the antithesis of that. I just always followed, whatever tickled my fancy. I studied. Look, as a child, I grew up in a musical family. My mother was an opera singer in Europe, and so I grew up listening to music and listening to some of the finest classical musicians, money can buy, and going to the opera and going to classical concerts, and then growing into the show business on stage and television and so forth. While I was studying in medical school, studying pharmaceutics, which is a 5-year degree, and at Wits University, University of the Witwatersrand here of Johannesburg. But while I was studying, I mean, I really paid much more attention to the other parts of my life. I played a lot of golf. I played music, recorded albums, toured with Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I played the part of Joseph for 3 years, and all this weird kind of stuff. Then I got out of university. I worked odd jobs to earn some money. I played music. We went to Nashville, Tennessee with my partner Russell Sterling, recorded an album there. We came back and I got involved in the pharmaceutical industry for a few years. Then I got involved, then I went, played more music, and then I got involved in advertising. And I worked in advertising at some of the biggest accounts money can buy: Coca-Cola, Nissan. Oh, geez, I forget now, but just to mention those two is enough, I suppose,
Yeah, really.
and and many more, and beer, the big beer brands that around the world. South African breweries, which now is SAB Miller, is the biggest brewer in the world, and I worked on many of their big brands here in South Africa, and so my life has really been an interesting roller coaster of all kinds of things, and just wherever my interest took me, I decided that's what I'm going to do. And I did it for a few years until I got bored, and I decided, okay, I've had enough of this. I'll do something else. And that's it. And in between, I was absorbing all this information and reading all these books and finding new avenues of knowledge and information. I realized, hold on, there's a whole big chunk of this stuff missing. I need to write a book about this. And then I did. I wrote Slave Species of God, and suddenly everything changed.
Yeah,
But, in between,
it's just incredible. the exact same track as everyone else. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to ask for your help in that way. But I also know that, the truth of the matter is also that you are that things are really moving along kind of quickly right now for you. And maybe you can describe, uh, first of all, the actual finds and how you got involved with Johann Heiner. Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah, Johann Heine, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
and talk about that a bit, and then we could also talk about how you got involved with Credo Mudwa, and go down that road.
Excellent. Well, Kerry, first of all, the the interesting thing about this question, which I call the great human puzzle, is I think it's a question on everyone's mind, or every conscious person has asked this question: Who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? It's the holy trinity of human questions, and 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 I think we're getting very close to finding some really solid and sound answers for those questions. And what's also very important is because until we know who we are, where we come from, and why we're here, it's very difficult for us as a species to make any sound decisions about where we're going to go in the future and how we're going to mold the future for ourselves. And I feel very strongly about that because there's still people out there that say, well, I don't care where we come from. I'm here. I'm just enjoying my life. Well, that's a wishy-washy kind of answer, in my personal opinion. Um, and
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. You absolutely need to know why you're here and what you're doing in order to know where to go from here. I
Absolutely.
think
And I
that's
think
wonderful.
and what's fascinating is that my work in Slave Species of God led me directly to meeting Jan Heine, who introduced me to the ancient ruins of Southern Africa. And thank God for Johan, because after 20 years of trying to bring the significance to the people of and the academics of South Africa and the so-called informed educators, who we now find out are actually the opposite, um, we realize that we're dealing with evidence that everyone has been looking for all these years, from Zachariah Sitchin to every other author that's ever ventured into, the origins of humankind and so forth. Eric von Däniken probably being one of the first that started asking these questions and wrote some amazing work that still stands today, actually, and he did it without very much scientific support, just using common sense and logic. Um, and and now we're finding that we're sitting on this vanished civilizations, the remains of the largest ever human settlement that's been constructed on planet Earth here in southern Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Mozambique, and probably even further north over the Zambezi into Zambia. And we're dealing with, which includes obviously the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, and we're dealing with direct links to the Sumerian Anunnaki, the Anunnaki that the Sumerian tablets refer to. We're dealing with bases that were, without a shadow of doubt, constructed by Enki and his team, and the earliest gold mines on planet Earth, and the first civilizations that emerged on planet Earth right here in southern Africa mining gold. We are now absolutely positively sure, in my mind, and a growing number of people around the world, that this is what we have discovered and uncovered. And that fills in a huge missing piece of the puzzle in that big question: who are we, where do we come from, and why are we here? And we can start feeling a lot more comfortable once you've absorbed this information and you've seen it and you really identified the absolute vastness of it and the complexity of it as well, the complexity of these ruins, because these people lived here for a period of 270,000 years about before the flood wiped them all out and just covered everything by several meters of sediment and soot and soil. well, especially Swazi, and well, many of the African languages show very distinct links to Hindi before I mention the names, but many Indian languages, and some of the customs and so forth. And this is very interesting because now we start seeing a multi-layered crossover of the ancient civilizations here. Although there's no doubt in my mind that the first civilization was here and every other civilization emerged from that, it seems that the Hindu civilization emerged from that and then came back here only to retrace its steps many thousands of years later as well. And so it was sort of came back, and so did the Bantu people, the Abantu people. As Krena Mutwa tells us, Abantu is Abantu, the children of Antu, who was the Sumerian goddess, the wife of Anu. The children of Antu who lived in the land of Abzu, below the equator where the gold came from.
Oh wow! Yeah, very interesting. So they have it in their lore, in their verbal
Exactly.
Traditions. Very interesting.
And that's how Jan and I got together. And then he took me to the calendar site that he discovered, and I said, listen, we need to write a book about this stuff because this is far too important. And I started working on the book using his photographs. And when I finished the book, I said, well, we need to find a nice name for this calendar site. In the beginning, we were going to call it the Jan Heine Stone Calendar. But I said to him, look, it doesn't really have a good ring. We need to give it a name that's going to be a catchy name for people to remember. And since we both believed it was, at that stage, really believed it was probably the oldest man-made structure on Earth, I came up with the name Adam's Calendar, since Adam's supposed to be the first man on Earth. And Jan said, no, that sounds great. So we ended up calling it Adam's Calendar, and that's what it's called today.
That's wonderful. So how does the Makomati, when you talk about the Makomati, is this the ruins, is this a distance from Adam's Calendar?
Yeah, look, Adam's Calendar is actually right in the middle of the ruins as well, but the forestry activity has destroyed most of those ruins. But even on Google, if you look on Google and you find Adam's Calendar, it's very, very visible. It's very clearly visible. It's a beautiful sight to see on Google. If you move south from Google and you find the first open area in the mountains where there is no forestry, you will start seeing the stone circles, even on Google, which suggests that most of that forestry area destroyed a lot more, thousands of more circles that were there already.
Yeah, the destruction, I guess the destruction is just really disheartening. There has to be lots of layers there, because you're saying that the flood actually came and wiped all of it out. And I guess that's documented in terms of archaeology, even in the traditional sense of the word, right?
Yeah, you know what, Kerry, it's quite obvious in some of the aerial shots how the soil has covered everything. There had to be some giant global event that was of such giant geophysical proportion, which could have covered, only such a large event could have covered this entire area under so much soil and sand. Okay. Now, what's interesting about that is that the Sumerian tablets tell us that the flood occurred and was originated in Antarctica at the South Pole, and that giant waves, like giant rubber bands, swept across the world from south to north. And that's really interesting because much of the sediment, when we see the flood came, destroyed all this, covered everything by soil, and then the water settled, and then the civilization restarted, and 13,000 years ago everything got restarted, and more gold mines were opened, and they carried on mining gold. And I believe that that's when we start seeing the Olmecs and the Hindu civilizations start after the flood. They really come into their own light, and we start seeing them really becoming prominent in history from about 13,000 years ago.
Where's Atlantis? I mean, isn't Atlantis even previous to that?
Well, exactly, but I believe that Atlantis probably was was sunk by the same geophysical event.
Oh, I see.
Um,
So, okay.
so I believe that Atlantis perished in that same event.
Okay.
Okay? And the reason I say this is because, you see, there's so much information here, it's really mind-boggling, because Adam's calendar's alignment, the north, south, east, west axis, is out by 3¼ degrees. Now, that falls outside the parameter of any current knowledge or information we have from astrophysics or precession or any of the, or Milankovitch cycles or any of those. None of the current knowledge allows the planet's axis to move as far as 3¼ degrees. Okay? So, what I believe happened is this huge geophysical effect, whether it was Nibiru that caused it, that came so close to planet Earth, as the Sumerian tablets may suggest, or whether it was a giant comet, like we saw recently come through around the sun. I think Nassim Haramein pointed that out a couple of years ago, those very large comets that came into our solar system and vanished. And if it came really close to planet Earth, the geophysical forces would have been so huge that they would have caused such a giant flood. And
Right.
at the same time...
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Lloyd, who I also interviewed, but he's talking about a brown dwarf. And that brown dwarf does have a small group of planets that surround it. From what he thinks, possibly Nibiru is one of those planets, and that it does come through, and he believes it's on its way back in, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I don't know much about Andy Lloyd's work, so I must go look at it. It sounds really interesting, because I'd like to find out more about what he says, because hopefully it'll corroborate what my theories are at the moment.
Well, actually, this is a really interesting aspect of that. He started out investigating Planet X, and then, found the brown dwarf, what he believes to be the brown dwarf, which is a second sun, and in our solar system. And then he got involved in investigating the Anunnaki. And you would think, it's just such an interesting synchronicity between the two of you, because you started out from different directions, but you both ended up in more or less the same place. And he's now writing fiction books, but they are very close to fact, using everything that he learned. And he researched Planet X, Nibiru, the brown dwarf, for about 10 years from a scientific point of view.
Fascinating.
Before he ever started getting into the Anunnaki, but it led him there. And that's what's really interesting. So the two of you may have quite a bit to talk about at some point, and he is English, by the way. So very interesting. I took a trip to England a few months ago and interviewed him there. The interview is on our website, so I do encourage you to listen to it. I find his work fascinating, especially the fiction aspect, because he's going down some roads that are really, from a sociological point of view, very, very interesting. Things about what it means to be an advanced species interacting with, say, people on Earth. Should that happen, and should that become the way of the world in the future, and what that would mean for us, and what that interaction would look like, what it would portend for us, et cetera, et cetera. And you're dealing with how it happened in the past, you see.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting idea.
Well, I want to take you down into the future, because this is where my work really seems to be pointing towards, and a lot of, I suppose, intuitive psychic guidance is pointing me very, very strongly in that direction, and I want to come back to that a little later. But just to finish on the topic of Adam's calendar, is that I believe that whatever caused the flood also caused such huge geophysical forces that it opened up gold fields and pushed the underlying gold tectonic plates that were filled with gold higher up towards the surface of the planet, which then opened up the mining fields in other parts of the world. Previously, they were mostly in South Africa, and then suddenly, after 13,000 years ago, you start seeing mining in Americas and so forth. There may have been mining there before, but I think it really became a lot more active after the flood, based on my current research. and you start seeing the Olmecs, who are expert gold miners, and all these interesting new civilizations that suddenly pop up, and they have very strong African features, and you say, well, if the original gold miners were in Africa, let's take some of those and take them over there. At least they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Very interesting.
So, so those geophysical forces then also caused the Earth to be moved from its original axis where it was to where it is today. Okay, and Adam's calendar is the proof of that, because these guys did not make mistakes. They wouldn't have structured a calendar site of such magnitude and importance incorrectly.
Yes. Well, also, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert in this area, but from what I understand, the 19.5 degrees that Richard Hoagland talks about with hyperdimensional physics, the location of the pyramid and the direction that it's pointing at this time versus where it was actually originally supposed to be angled. I believe there is a shift that's reflected there as well.
Yeah. And I think we slowly but surely going to start getting closer to some really interesting answers. Well, as I said, Adam's calendar proves beyond a shadow of doubt that the Earth's axis and inclination was greater than it is now by 3¼ degrees, which is really interesting.
And I have to, I'm sorry to I don't mean to be leading you off in different directions here too drastically, but I have to tell you that I'm also in touch with this guy named Bill Brown and his partner Richard Gabriel, and I don't know if you've seen on our site, have 2 interviews with them. They're doing something called the Giza Geomatrix, and it has to do with locating the something going on in the Great Pyramid, a heat signature that the military, I've actually gotten a source, a secret military source that has substantiated the fact that there was a heat signature in the top of the pyramid where there's not even supposed to be a chamber. Then there have been goings on the Giza Plateau that are very nefarious lately. A great deal of activity, part of it definitely to do with the discovery of the Hall of Records beneath the Sphinx, but there's more there as well, and I have to encourage you to look at their work, because they are also talking about a shift in the axis, and they're talking about something that might have happened even recently. On top of you're talking about what happened in the past, but I'm saying that there's actually movement in the axis at this moment that is possibly being documented.
I wouldn't be surprised. I've suspected it for a long time, and I'm glad to hear this. I'll check out this interview with Bill and Richard. It sounds really interesting, and I somehow need to contact them to, if they're more knowledgeable than I am about this matter. I need to speak to somebody and share this information with people that, especially astrophysicists and so forth, that can help work these things out.
Well, they're also using ground-penetrating radar to locate underground chambers under the Giza Plateau that have tunnels and so on, and they're also using a certain star matrix idea that has to do with a lot of power places around the planet that involve pyramids, and it may be that they should come down to where you are and check that area out, because there could be an underground pyramid in that area.
Well, I can tell you one thing is that I know for a fact that we have a grave site at Adam's Calendar. The stone altar, which is about 700 meters north of Adam's Calendar, is definitely a grave site. And I originally worked out that it is the grave of Dumuzi, Enki's youngest son, who was buried there. And there's a lot of references to that in the Sumerian tablets, how Inanna buried Dumuzi in the deep Abzu on the edge of the cliff near her father's favorite place. And it all seems to point in the same, to the same spot.
Yes, what happens is you've got this culture, which is in essence the Anunnaki, and you're talking about the pyramids and the significance. I remote viewed the top chamber of the Great Pyramid and actually saw a being that was dressed in the ibis head costume, headdress, and was all in gold. And this is Thoth, I was told later, actually wasn't consciously aware of this, and then found out that this is, let's see, I guess the son or either the father or the son of Enki. So
Yeah.
we're talking about the same people here.
Yeah,
So there's
exactly.
something going on with all of this.
Well, there definitely is. Look, I I'm becoming more and more in touch with this whole psychic and spiritual and channeling world. I didn't expect I would, but I am. I'm just drawn into it. The very interesting thing that happened, I know in some of the interviews you've had with David Wilcock, he explores the possibility that there's a reincarnation of
Edgar
oh my God, I
Cayce.
got it. Edgar Casey, yeah. Reincarnation of Edgar Casey. And you know what? For all intents and purposes, it sounds absolutely feasible and wonderful. And I have absolutely no reason to doubt that. While just as much I have absolutely no reason or no way to prove it. So I'll just go with the flow and listen to what the guy has to say. And if it sounds intelligent and adds value, then that's fantastic.
Right, absolutely.
And what's happened to me lately is quite interesting, because people started asking me, well, why you? Why is all this information coming to you? Why? Because I must tell you, Kerry, is that I seem to feel, I sort of feel like I'm at one with these ruins. Ever since the first day I came here and Johan Heine started showing me around and I went to the calendar, I felt an absolute affinity and I started seeing things long before anybody else could see things. Okay.
Fascinating.
And understanding things about this, and then I went and I figured out that stone altar is actually a grave, that it's a grave of Dumuzi. And incidentally, I asked Kreda Mutwa about that, and he confirmed that it is the grave of Dumuzi as well. So a lot of interesting things happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, is this the point at which you want to talk about how Credo got involved in all of this, or how he already was involved in all of this? Because some people won't actually know what his connection is.
Yeah, almost. Let me just finish this thing because it's got psychic implications, and I know that a lot of your listeners and your subscribers are open-minded and they like this crossover with hardcore science and psychic ability and so forth, which we know in any case is an ability that's proved over and over again by hardcore science.
Right.
So let's just cut to the chase and call psychic ability a real ability. And what happened is that one or two people looked at me and they were asking, well, why are you involved? And I asked a few psychic people. I said, well, I don't know. Maybe in my past life I was somebody that was linked to these ruins and these structures, because I really feel a very close affinity, and that's probably why I'm doing this work. And I've had several psychics now tell me that I'm a reincarnation of Dumuzi. And I found his grave. So I find that quite interesting for whatever it's worth.
Absolutely. Well, anything's possible. There's no reason, individuals are individuals, and they are reincarnating, and certainly we all have these histories. And I myself have a special fascination with the Anunnaki. And in fact, this is really another synchronicity. I was on the trail of the Anunnaki when before I got involved in Camelot and was writing a screenplay about them and their return. When I stumbled on what is called wingmakers.com and found that they had already gone down that road to some degree and had a story based around that. So then I tried shopping that around Hollywood and tried to get it made into a movie, and it didn't happen. And that's what pushed me to pick up a camcorder myself and start doing interviews and start investigating this more substantially. I actually put my screenplay to the side at that time, and I'm about to pick it up again. This is sort of strange, but because everything seems to be pointing in that direction. So I'm really interested. So if you are the reincarnation of Dumuzi, we may have more to talk about than meets the eye here, because there is some fascinating synchronicities happening around the planet, and some of this points back to Sitchin's work, and then it also goes beyond it. And I have to say, you have to perhaps mention that there must be some kind of a nod to Sitchin in here for you, even in
Absolutely.
writing your book, Slave Species to God, is there not?
Absolutely. I mean, Sitchin, it's a number of authors. Velikovsky, I think
Ah,
the first time
yes.
I read Velikovsky was I was still in high school, and I was just so blown away by it, but I couldn't quite figure out what to make of it, but it was imprinted in my subconscious, and it just stayed there. And then when I finally discovered von Däniken, and I went through his books, that suddenly sparked me off. And then several years later, I discovered Sitchin, and that just got me on a whole track. And I realized that there was this information that I needed to follow up on and find as much as I possibly could about it. And
Yeah,
then with my
it's
knowledge
really
with my
interesting.
knowledge of biology and chemistry and all that from studying pharmaceutics, I realized that I was in a position to simplify it, because many people that I spoke to about Sitchin said, look, his work is too difficult to read. For me, it's beautiful. I love his books, but a lot of people out there struggle with the style and the way he writes. It's too much information. So I realized that I need to write a book that any person on the street can pick up and read, and make it really easy for them to read and understand, and link all these things together, anatomy, biology, etc., history, religion, genetics, link it all together, and then tell the story of humankind, which I extracted from the translations of the Sumerian tablets from Sitchin and various other people, and then the Schoen collection in Oslo, and many others. And there's just fascinating stories. So definitely Sitchin is
Yes.
a huge, I suppose, inspiration to many other authors.
Absolutely. And, there are a lot of different directions we can go from here. So, do you want to talk about Credo Mutwa and how because you give quite a nod to him very graciously in your book about Makamati, and I think it's the Adam's Calendar one that you wrote. I'm trying to place which one I read it in. And at any rate, I think that it would be interesting to know, how did he link up with all of this?
Obviously, I've known about Credo Mutwa for a long time, and slowly but surely, the importance of his influence started to grow in my personal body of information. And when I'd written Slave Species of God, and a friend of mine, Amanda, was visiting Credo, and I think we just released Adam's Calendar. That's it. I just released Adam's Calendar, and my friend Amanda was visiting Credo, and I got a phone call from her, and she was very, very excited. She says, Michael, Credo wants to see you. Credo wants to see you. And I went, oh, wow, that's amazing, because I'd love to meet the guy. I didn't know how to meet him or how to go about it. And she said, no, Credo wants to see you. I'm with him now. And I said, okay, well, when you finish there, get me his details, and I'll phone him and organize to go and see him. Which then happened, and I phoned Credo, and I had a long chat with him on the phone. And the way it happened is Amanda was sitting talking to him, and they went there for a day. They go there sort of once every 6 months with a group of people. And she saw my book, Slave Species of God, lying on his on the table in front of him. And it was a well-thumbed, very well-used copy of the book. And Amanda said, "Oh, do you know Michael Tellinger?" And Credo said, "No, but I'd like to meet Michael, because I have a lot to tell him." And he said something like, he has an important job to do, or something like that. And Amanda said, okay, well, I'll phone him. And that's when she ran out and phoned me. Credo wants to see you. So shortly, within a month or so, I went down, I saw Credo, and I thought, well, if I'm going to go there, this may be the one opportunity I have to see him, I may not see him again. Kratos getting on in years, and I thought, okay, well, phone my friend who's a film producer, and let's take some cameras down and let's film this thing if Kratos permits it. So we arrived there, and lots of excitement, and I asked him, can we, Baba Kratos, can we film this interview? Can we record it? I don't know what we're going to do with it, but I just like to have it because I'm not going to remember what you tell me, and I want to have it on record. And he said, absolutely. So while they were setting up their cameras and all that, I went inside and I presented a copy of Adam's calendar to him. In hindsight, now I'm so angry at myself because I should have waited until the cameras were rolling. Because Kratos just burst into tears. He
Oh my
became
God.
he became completely emotional. He burst into tears, and he couldn't speak for quite a while. He couldn't speak. And then I got all emotional, and I couldn't speak. So I was actually maybe glad that the cameras weren't there, because I wanted to present a macho image. But anyway, and he just told me he never thought he would see this sacred place again. And
Oh.
then he started telling me how it is one of the two most sacred sites on earth. It is where heaven mated with Mother Earth. That he was initiated there in 1937. And I never thought he'd see it again, and I must do everything I can to protect it because the evil people of the country want to destroy it and all this. And
or a scalar weapon
So,
device?
yes, something like that. And with that, they were going to decimate and fry the Allied forces as they came over the horizon, right? And if you look at the death ray, what was in the death ray, what was the power source in the death ray is known as a magnetron. And a magnetron, when you see the design of a magnetron and you see the design of the stone ruins here, you fall on your back. It's the same bloody thing. Okay? And once you realize that the stones used in this construction of the stone ruins are filled with energy, they radiate energy fields, they resonate like bells. You can create a standing resonant frequency wave inside these stone circles, and they look like a magnetron. You realize that if a 6-inch diameter magnetron can smite the whole Allied army, can you imagine how much energy you can generate with a 25-meter diameter magnetron?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, there is all of this, and from what I understand, the Great Pyramid also has some of these energy frequency powers.
Yeah.
They've talked about that as well.
Well,
Well,
Carmen Bolter, that's now visiting me here in her documentary, The Pyramid Code, she addresses that very nicely, and she actually shows you how they generated the energy underneath the pyramid with this very specific sound of the moving of the water under the pyramids. And then they channeled that sound of the water through specific structural chambers that amplified the sound and eventually became the sound at the top of the pyramid that was transmitted, just very much the same like Nikola Tesla did with his tower in Long Island.
yes. Okay. Well, I mean, we can see how the powers that be are definitely probably aware of this to some degree, and also have been utilizing this in their own technologies. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But this is coming from quite a different direction, and it's fascinating that that in a sense you've been allowed to investigate and develop these sites without too much interference. Has there been interference?
Well, I sense that the first wave of interference has just started in the last 2 weeks or so, with some slanderous rumors that have started being spread about me. And it's very depressing, and it's very disheartening that people have nothing better to do than to concoct malicious lies and rumors and start spreading them on a relatively high platform of international figures that have bought into it and have actually swallowed the lies and disinformation.
Well, since you brought it up at this moment, let's actually go down that road, because part of the reason we're doing this interview now is to actually dispel some of those rumors and to make things clear for the people out there. And we'll do this in writing too, if necessary, to accompany this briefly. But let's talk about what the rumors are that are being spread, and then explain why we don't have to. I think we've agreed not to use names really, other than some of this concerns Credo Mudwa, and certainly not because of his fault or anything like that, but that he's been wrapped up into this whole sort of campaign.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, Kerry. I mean, I absolutely, for want of a better word, I worship Credo Mutwa. I worship the man in a positive sense. I absolutely am a huge admirer of the body of knowledge and information the man carries, and the benefit and that he has brought the human race with sharing his knowledge and information, which has also caused him a lot of harm and damage, because much of the knowledge and information he has shared with the world, he was not supposed to share with the world. And he felt it was important because of the controlling groups that are keeping us enslaved and dumbed down. He came out and started sharing a lot of this information that has allowed a lot of people to ride that wave and use his knowledge and information
for their own research and so forth. And that's good because it grows the waves of consciousness and growth of knowledge. So I'm absolutely in awe of Credo, and not in a million years would I contemplate doing anything that could possibly harm the man. In fact, I think I'm one of the few people that is I certainly count myself among a few people that has done as much as I can to help Credo Mutwa, especially with the work that we're doing and now publishing the DVD that I recorded with him to generate revenue for him and earn him some extra money, because the man is in dire straits. And as I said, many people have used his information, but I have not necessarily always rewarded him for it.
So what exactly, what they're saying out there, let me just say, because I became wrapped up in this when I was contemplating a trip to South Africa, and just inadvertently kind of stumbled on this situation. And then, you know, I decided that using Camelot to do what Camelot actually is very good at doing, which is to bring the things that are hidden to the surface, and to clear up the confusion and the controversy around certain things, in my opinion. So what happened was we were getting rumors from a certain person who has been going around attacking you. Actually, there's more than one person, and they have been accusing you of stealing from, I mean, it sounded completely outlandish to me, stealing from Credo Mutwa by, number one, I don't know, not sharing whatever profits that you supposedly you were taking donations and not passing them on. And then the other thing was that there supposedly was an investor who gave a large donation that was intended for Credo, and they're saying that you kept it. And so, you know, I know it sounds like drilling down and very detailed and almost embarrassing to even talk about this, but I think, you know, we're in a community where word travels just incredibly rapidly now, and this global community that we're a part of, it's very crucial that your work continue and that it not be tarnished by these disinfo campaigns that start out with even utilizing people that think they're well-intentioned. I mean, I believe the people that are accusing you actually think they're doing a good thing.
It may be so, and I think maybe they do think they're doing the right thing. So let's quickly cut to the chase here. Yes. I've been accused of stealing money from Credo. I've been accused of stealing vast amounts of money from Credo Mutwa. I've been accused of receiving donations aimed for Credo Mutwa and keeping it to myself. Now, it's very simple to get to the bottom of it. So I'm going to just really make it very, very simple. First of all, categorically speaking, I have absolutely not taken anything from Credo. In fact, I pay Credo royalties from the DVD on ZuluPlanet.com that I spent a lot of time and effort and money to edit together and put together. You know what it costs in time and money to edit these things together.
Absolutely.
And put together a nice professional product of very important information and knowledge that Credo shared with me that day, first day that I saw him. And so that's available on our website, and Credo Mutwa gets a huge amount of royalties. I'm not going to go into detail because that's personal information, but I think I sent you a copy of our contract. So
yeah,
if I say
did. But I do want you to say that, I mean, you give him half, which is more than generous in any kind of business arrangement, right? 50-50.
Yeah, Credo gets 50% royalties of all the sales of the DVDs. And that's important. Okay, so now that we brought it out, as you said, that is far more generous than most royalties or most publishers or most people get in any kind of situation of this nature.
Absolutely.
So I don't feel guilty about that, and I will make that public if need be. And so Credo gets those royalties. We have not kept anything away from him. I'm not going to disclose to the people how much we've paid him because that's personal and privileged information. But the main accusation here is what really is, it's actually quite funny if you think about it. So this is how it works, right? Somebody tells these journalists that they have made a large donation to Credo Mutwa, which they paid into Michael Tellinger's account. Okay? And I go, okay, well, and then he tells them that, and Michael Tellinger has not paid the money to Credo, he's kept it to himself. What happens then, these journalists phone Credo Mutwa, and they say, we believe that so-and-so has made, a secret donor has made, and the point is that this person has remained anonymous and secret. We don't know who he is. I don't know who he is. He must come forward and announce himself, right?
Yeah,
And we can get,
absolutely. Let me just say that we are now putting a call out that if there is such a donation, and if there is such
yeah,
a person, that they need to come forward and name themselves and name the amount, because Michael is not aware of it and has not received it. So go ahead,
yeah.
Michael, with that.
Yeah, so please, if whoever is making these claims that they've made a large donation to Credo, come out, tell us your name, tell us who you are, tell us how much you donated, tell us when you made the donation, and into which account you made that donation. All right, I will then disclose to you what my account number is, and we can check on my account. I'll make that public on that day whether that amount has actually been received by me. I'm happy to do that. Okay. But this person remains anonymous, and they just continuing this slanderous accusation that I'm stealing from Credo. And unfortunately, a few very prominent people that you've interviewed on your show have bought into this, and they have believed it. And that makes me very, very sad, because I hold my honor very, very high. And what I like to do is these journalists that are continuing this, what they did is they phoned Credo Mutwa and they said, you know, we heard that you received, that Michael Tellinger received a large donation for you. Has he paid you the money? Well, of course Credo said, no, I haven't received any money from Michael, because there is no money. And they use that as their conclusion. They say, you see, Tellinger is stealing from Credo Mutwa. So it's so silly, it's so stupid.
Okay, but there's more to this story. Let's talk about Credo's. You said that there was a town that was built for Credo or by Credo or something, and that has been decimated.
Yes, and I see, and this is actually and you know, Kerry, and I'm sure that you've had this experience yourself. I find the moment you reach out and you try and help people, sometimes it turns around and it stings you really badly.
Yes.
You know, now, I'm not a wealthy person. I really survive on the sale of the books and the talks that I do, and paying back the debts to the people that help me print the books. All right. So, you know, if people think that I'm some millionaire's kid that's running around, they got the complete wrong end of the stick. Right. And the story is that in the 60s, I think it was in the 60s, that Credo Mutwa created this beautiful village, cultural village in Soweto, with a lot of his artwork that was represented, you know, history of the African, ancient African tradition, and a lot of, it was his passion, it was the Credo Mutwa cultural village. It was decimated and destroyed during the apartheid years, and then again afterwards. What has happened is that that cultural village is a means to survival and income to a few young black dudes in Soweto that take tourists there, and they show them this cultural village of Credo Mutwa. Now, a close friend of mine by the name of Dave Gardner, I'm going to forward you his email, because he sent me an email to basically outline the story. Dave Gardner went to Credo's village in Soweto, and he came back and he was just absolutely shocked and depressed, because he's a huge fan of Credo, and he's only 19 years old, and he's one of the most informed and well-read people you'll ever meet. And he phoned me and he said, listen, Michael, I've just come back from Credo's cultural village in Soweto, and it's shocking. It's a disgrace in the state in which it is. We need to do something about it. And I said, well, fine, I'll help. We'll help raise some money on my website, and find enough money to fix up Credo's cultural village. So what we did is we put a button on my website. We put some photographs of the destruction and the broken statues and just the absolute mess on the website, and we said, please help us, make a donation towards Credo's cultural village, so we can, send a team in there and fix it up and clean it up, so it's a representation and clean and get some respect back for it. Not only that, but also in a roundabout way, helps some of these young guys to earn a living, which is the only source of living they have when they take tourists to this cultural village. And anyway, so that we put that button on the website, and it was there for probably about 3 or 4 weeks. We didn't receive any donations at all, and I'm happy also to disclose that quite publicly. Um, Really, I
Yes.
mean, it's just these poor journalists. I don't know what they're getting themselves into. They're going to have to lick some, kiss some serious ass after this because they're just lying or they're just being taken for a ride.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so,
So,
so after, so eventually we didn't get any donations. But what happened then is when I got to Credo's house, when I saw Credo in March, I got to his house. Virginia, his wife, brought up, listen, some people have been phoning us and telling us that Tellinger is raising funds for Credo and keeping it to himself. And I went, hold on, where is this, what's going on here? And I said, okay, is this to do with the cultural village? And she said, yes, it's something to do with, and I said, yeah, that's right. And I meant to tell you about it when I got here today, is that, we're trying to raise some money so we can send a team in there and fix up your village, the cultural village in Soweto. And Credo said, well, he's got nothing to do with the cultural village. And he doesn't want anything to do with it because in his heart it was dead. So I said, well, if that's the case, thank you very much. End of story. And we pulled the plug and we took the button off the website, and that was the end of it.
and at this point, so it's very clear. I mean, that you didn't raise any money there, and you're stating that unequivocally here in this interview publicly for all people to hear. So I really thank you for being so frank and being so open to even disclosing this kind of information because. I do understand that this is an invasion of your privacy, but it's because Credo Mutwa has become such a cause celeb in a certain sense, and because your name is becoming so well known, and that obviously your work with Adam's Calendar and Makamati and so on, that it's important that this not be, as I said, tarnished by these innuendos and rumors. And I have experienced a lot of this myself of late. And so I know how it can be very damaging. And I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you speaking frankly.
No, thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate you giving me the platform to do so. So, in closing, I'm one of and they get excited, and they realize that there is a bright, shining light and hope at the end of this dreary, dark tunnel. And that gives me so much excitement and joy, because in essence, I think that these discoveries of these ancient civilizations is giving me the foundation and the knowledge and also the confidence to take this new proposed social structure to the people of the world, because we have to find something new. Every single socio-political system we've had in all of human history has failed us. So it's no point going back and trying this again, or recreating that, or trying that one again. We have to come up with a completely new social structure. And that's what I've concocted and come up with, and I call it contributionism. And I'm going to talk a lot about it on YouTube in sort of small bite-sized chunks very soon. But I'd like to maybe have another interview with you and discuss that and go into the details and the various aspects of it, because it's quite difficult for some people to wrap their heads around it, because we are so completely and utterly conditioned by capitalism and molded by the schooling system that we have, that some people struggle to really understand it. And you need to unpack it in small bite-sized chunks, and after a little while, when the pieces of the puzzle start to drop and you realize how simple this contributionist system is and how much abundance it provides on every level of the human social order, it is quite spectacular, and it's very, very exciting to start thinking about it. In fact, I'm so engrossed in it that sometimes I forget that I live in a capitalistic world.
Well,
and I just want to jump forward and be in this contribution society where there is no money, there is no barter, no trade, and no concept of value attached to anything. And there's a completely new approach. It's quite a spiritual and a conscious approach to life. And I think we're very, very close to that tipping point.
Is there any way that you can put it into, I mean, if you were to put it into maybe a sentence or two as to what exactly that is? And I have a theory, and I think I actually saw a brief statement about your this, but I didn't get a chance to really get into it so far. So is there, just because, and then at some point, yes, I'd love to do a follow-up interview here anyway, regardless, and certainly we can deal with that subject in more depth. It would be wonderful to do so. In fact, I'd like to interview you in person. So, because I think people are very strong in person. Obviously that's what Camelot has been built around, is putting a camera in front of somebody and really getting their testimony face to face. And so since you're coming here anyway, we're going to have the opportunity, and that will be really fabulous. But be that as it may, could we at least just tantalize people with a little bit more about the concept, what exactly it might be?
Okay. I was going to say to you, hopefully I'm going to see you here first before you see me in
I
Los
hope so.
Angeles.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I would love it. Okay.
Well, listen, my invitation to you is open. You can come here anytime. I've got Carmen Bolter here now. I've got Thursday a wonderful guy called Konstantin Pavlidis arriving from London, and he's an expert in it's what's known as EPC, or electrophotonic capture. I don't know if you've come across that yet. Very interesting Russian device that was developed in around 1996, and it's a very interesting, it measures energy flow in your body on a very, very sophisticated level. And we want to measure the energy flow in the stone structures, and the effect it has on the human body as well.
Okay, this is not, you're talking about, is his name Henry, is a very well-known guy from England, I think he is.
No, the guy that's coming here is a guy called Konstantin Pavlidis.
Oh, I see.
And,
okay, I'm thinking of this other guy. He works with some of this interesting synchronicity there. But at any rate, to continue.
So,
yes.
to come back to contributionism is, in a nutshell, it is a brand new, and never tried before, in my research, according to my research so far, social order or social structure. At first I wanted to call it a New World Order, just to find the place of the Illuminati and take the power away from them. but I thought maybe that's a bad idea. So I call it a new social structure, which is based on the concept of no money. You remove money from the system. Since money is the root of all evil, we have to deal with it, and we need to remove it from the system. Until you remove money from the system, you will not solve the problem, because it is the ultimate enslavement tool of the controlling groups. So the new social structure eliminates money, removes all money from the system, but it also removes the concept of barter or trade, and the concept of attaching any value to anything, because once you remove money or barter or trade, things will not have value. The only thing you're left with is the natural ability and the God-given talents of people to do what it is that they're blessed with to do, or what they've evolved into doing or trained themselves to do for the greater benefit of their whole community. And it sounds a bit utopian when you say it like this, but I can promise you that it is everything but utopian. It is an absolutely beautiful, solid system that works like clockwork. And it's not something that I threw together in a few weeks or a few months. It's taken me 5 years to put this structure and this theory and this hypothesis together and this blueprint together. And I've had to go through every single aspect of social life, you know, food, health, education, you know, shelter, entertainment, arts, culture, sport, television shows, furniture, science, space travel, you name it. You know, you've got to go through every single aspect of human life and see how it will function in a contributionist society. And the one thing that I can tell you is the first thing that is a shock to the system is the abundance of things. When you remove the waste of time and energy that is spent by billions of people every day. If you next time you get out of your house and you drive down the road and just look around you, 90% of the people that you see around you are doing something for money. Okay? They're not doing something because they love doing it. They're doing it for money. Okay? Now, just imagine the incredible waste of energy that happens there. 99% of the global population wake up every morning and they hate their life. They hate their boss. They hate their job. They hate the fact that they're in debt. They hate the fact that they have to stand up or catch a bus or catch a tube or drive in traffic, be in the rain, and go and do a job that they don't really like, but they have to do it because they have to buy bread and milk and put food on the table and pay rent. That's not what we should be doing. We should not be working for money. We should be working for the greater benefit of our community and ultimately ourselves. But if you turn it, once you realize that this is where this thing is going, you realize it's actually a fundamental, the fundamental substructure for contributionism is a higher level of consciousness and spirituality. And it's an absolutely beautiful system, and it works like clockwork, and the abundance of everything from food to science to technology to arts and culture is astronomical.
Well, I think it definitely has value. I can tell that right off, you know, just listening to you. And thank you for that. I think that it's an extremely sophisticated idea for the planet, and I do think that it's quite possible that that's something that we are evolving towards anyway. And therefore it's almost implicit. In other words, what you're saying is, you know, for each person to contribute who they are and what they are, which is what they do anyway. We're all energy, if you think of it that way. So in essence, in just coming here as a spirit, as a soul, at this time, we are contributing to this whole. Now, whether we contribute in a positive way or a negative way is another matter, but we're all contributing. So at the very root...
I must also add, sorry to interrupt you, I must also add that some people immediately think when they hear this, they think, oh, it's a free-for-all, I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing. And it's a lawless society, and all. It's nothing like it. It's actually completely the opposite. But we can get into that in the next interview, or we can go, or the next chat when I see you, where we can go into a lot more detail and actually break down the different aspects of this, because it really is so beautiful and so simple. Once you start it, once I've taken you through a few of the elements you'll then be able to start working out all the other areas because you understand the formula is so simple.
Well, I do want to say that in a sense, and I'm just throwing this out, and then we probably should close this down because people's attention span is not that long. And I did want to put this out as one. But the idea is a bit like a tribe. Um, what I envision would be tribal life. You know, in other words, each person simply being there wherever they are and contributing.
Yeah.
So on a very basic level, I think maybe that is something of a mirror or a model for what you're talking about, but in a much more sort of sophisticated way.
Exactly. It's very much going back to tribal culture and tribal lifestyle, but tweaking it and bringing in some really new, sophisticated ways and things that we want to move towards. And that you put your finger right on it. It's exactly what it is.
Okay, very good. Well, Michael, this has been excellent. I've loved hearing from you and talking with you. You have such a wide range of knowledge, and you're also very, very open. And I noticed that before, and I have to say it again because it's a very important trait to have right now is to keep one's mind open.
Yeah.
There's so much coming forward in the future, coming towards us, or we're going towards it. It's moving both ways. And I think people need to keep their minds open to possibilities. And I love that you do that. I love that you tread where others fear to go, in the sense that you don't have to have a degree in this or that in order to compare and contrast various disciplines. And I think that's it's all cross-disciplinary, and I think it's a very, very good way of looking at the world, because ultimately we're about breaking down barriers at this time and really finding the truth behind a lot of the facade and the screens. So thank you very much.
Kerry, thank you very much, and we'll talk on Skype, and I want to get you down here very, very soon before I come to California and the United States, and I look forward to hosting you in South Africa.
That sounds great. Absolutely. Okay, you take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.